on August 19th of 2025. After hearing evidence presented regarding the defendant's motion for bond, this court finds the defendant is a risk to flee the jurisdiction, not appear for future court appearances. The defendant is a risk to influence witnesses. The defendant is a threat to the community and family members as testified to at defendant's hearing regarding bond.
She sat in that courtroom, calm, composed, almost unbothered, while the stepbrother of the man she allegedly killed stood before the judge, voice cracking, and said, "Your Honor, it feels like I'm living in a nightmare." She didn't flinch, she didn't look away, she didn't tear up, she just sat there. The same girl who, just months before, had been posting tearful videos on TikTok mourning her mother and stepfather's murders. The very murders she is now charged with committing, sat in that courtroom like she had somewhere better to be. But here is the detail that should stop you cold. Before she was ever arrested, before investigators ever came to her door, Sarah Grace Patrick had personally reached out to true crime creators on TikTok and asked them to cover her parents' case. Her exact words? It would be a really big hit. Those are not the words of a grieving daughter. This is the case of Sarah Grace Patrick, a 16-year-old girl from Carroll County, Georgia, accused of walking in her mother and stepfather's bedroom in the dead of night and shooting them both to death as they lay sleeping. And what makes this story different from so many others is not just the crime. It is everything she did after. If this case is pulling you in, and it should be, make sure you're subscribed to Courtroom Justice Files. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a case like this one. We cover the stories the world can't stop talking about, and we are just getting started.
If the defendant can kill her own parents in such a violent manner, I fear for my own safety and the safety of my family and friends.
Carroll County, Georgia, February 20th, 2025. It is a Thursday morning like any other, quiet cold. A neighborhood tucked along Carrollton Tyus Road, the kind of place where families wave to each other across driveways and nothing bad is supposed to find its way in. But behind the walls of one house on that street, something unspeakable had already happened. A 5-year-old girl woke up. Nobody knows exactly what was going through her mind as she padded down the hallway toward her parents' room. Maybe she was thirsty. Maybe she wanted breakfast. Maybe she just wanted to see her mom's face before the day started. What she found instead will never leave her. Kristin Brock, 41 years old, Jamie Brock, 45 years old, found shot to death in their bed as they slept. The little girl ran to her older sister, 16-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick, who picked up the phone and dialed 911. First responders arrived and immediately began searching for signs of how someone got in. No broken windows, no kicked-in doors, no signs of forced entry anywhere. One door had been left ajar. That was it. Whoever did this walked right through that door or never had to leave to begin with. Kristin and James were pronounced dead at the scene, multiple gunshot wounds. The murder weapon? Gone, completely vanished. No firearm was ever recovered from that property. Investigators fanned out across the neighborhood. They canvassed, they interviewed, they searched for any trace of an intruder, any motive, any lead pointing outward from that house. And Sarah Grace Patrick? She was grieving, or at least that is what everyone believed. In the days and weeks that followed the murders, Sarah Grace Patrick turned to TikTok, video after video, tearful, heartbroken, the portrait of a shattered teenager who had just lost her mother and stepfather in the most violent way imaginable. One post carried the caption, "Please send prayers for healing." Thousands of people responded with sympathy. Comments poured in. She was the grieving daughter, the poor girl who made the 911 call, the teenager bravely raising awareness about what happened to her family. But at the very end of that same video, that same tearful, emotional post, she had typed something else, something she apparently intended only for herself. "I should prob delete later." She never did. Investigators were already watching, and the more they looked, the more the picture started to shift. Because Sarah wasn't just posting grief content, she was working the case. She reached out directly to multiple true crime creators on TikTok pages with tens of thousands of followers and personally asked them to cover her parents' murders. One creator, who runs the page, reportedly, with nearly 120,000 followers, shared screenshots of the messages she received. Sarah had written to her, "Search up Brock case. Kristin and James Brock, they're my parents." And out of nowhere, random Thursday night in February, someone came to my house and left my parents for me and my 5-year-old sister to wake up to. The creator assumed she was helping a grieving teenager get justice. She had no idea she was talking to the person investigators would later charge with the murders. And then in the comments section of one of those TikTok posts covering the Brock case, another user asked a simple question. What kind of weapon was used? Sarah Grace Patrick replied, "Not with words, not with grief, not with I don't know, I'm still waiting for answers." She replied with a gun emoji. That is not grief, that is something else entirely. To understand what allegedly unfolded inside that house on February 20th, you have to go back because the life Sarah Grace Patrick lived before that night was anything but simple. Sarah was the daughter of Kristin and her biological father, Danielle Patrick. That marriage fell apart, and what followed was the kind of custody battle that leaves marks on everyone it touches. At just 11 years old, Sarah sat down with police and told them she felt unsafe in her mother's home. She pleaded with the court to let her go and live with her father. 11 years old. Stop and think about that, about how desperate a child has to feel to walk into a police station and say those words out loud. Meanwhile, Kristin had moved forward. She was now involved with a man named James Brock, a father himself, with children from a previous relationship. Among them, a boy named Jaden, 12 years old, who would one day stand in a courtroom and say the words that silenced everyone in the room. We will get to that. But the Brock household carried its own history. Court records from August 2022 reveal something that no one in that neighborhood would have expected. Kristin was charged with attempting to run James over with a car. A child was in the back seat when it happened. James filed a protective order. He alleged physical abuse. He alleged threats. He alleged she had interfered with 911 calls. 3 weeks late, he dropped the order. And in December 2023, barely a year before the murders, Kristin and James were married. James also lived with a serious medical condition. He depended on an LVAD machine, a mechanical heart pump, to keep him alive. It ran through every hour of every night, emitting a soft, steady alarm, the kind of sound that becomes the background noise of a home, the kind of sound everyone inside that house would have known by heart. Investigators would later press Sarah on that machine, on what she heard the night her mother and stepfather were killed. Her answer? She heard the alarm 10 to 20 minutes before she went to bed. She said it sounded faint, background noise, she told them. Investigators heard something very different in that response. They heard the timeline starting to close in. If this case is pulling you in, and it should be, make sure you are subscribed to Courtroom Justice Files. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a case like this one. We cover the stories the world can't stop talking about, and we're just getting started. For 5 months, Sarah Grace Patrick walked free. 5 months of tearful TikToks. 5 months of playing the grieving daughter in public. 5 months of messaging true crime creators. 5 months of the murder weapon staying hidden somewhere no one had found it. And then, on July 8, 2025, Carroll County investigators issued a warrant for her arrest. Sarah Grace Patrick turned herself in. She was 17 years old. She was charged as an adult, 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault. And in the weeks that followed, 2 additional charges of malice murder were added, along with weapons charges. When the press asked what had led them to her, investigators used 3 words. Mountains of evidence. What they pointed to specifically was her digital footprint, the trail she had left across social media, the text messages, the phone calls, the comments, all of it, building a picture that investigators said they could not ignore. Her grandfather, Dennis Nolan, went on camera and fought back. It's all speculative, he said. Nothing puts the gun in her hand. They don't have the gun. Her biological father, Danielle Patrick, posted a statement. My daughter is 100% innocent. And her defense attorneys pushed hard on the gaps. No murder weapon recovered. No official motive ever disclosed to the public. And a serious challenge to her initial interrogation, arguing it was conducted without a parent or a lawyer in the room, while she was still a minor. But there is one thing no defense argument has managed to explain. Nobody who truly had nothing to do with a murder reaches out to a true crime creator and tells them it would be a really big hit. The bond hearings in this case were unlike anything Carroll County had seen in years. The courtroom split cleanly in two. On one side, Sarah supporters, friends, church members, some of them wearing t-shirts printed with 4 words, "I stand with Sarah." Her pastor took the witness stand and told the court she had made a personal decision to be baptized, that she called him from her jail cell just to pray.
To Honorable Judge, my name is Ben Bonner, and I serve as lead pastor at Catalyst Church in Carrollton, Georgia. I'm writing on behalf of Sarah Grace Patrick, a young woman who's been a part of our church family for about a year now. Sarah Grace first came to Catalyst around a year ago. From the beginning, she was eager to grow in her faith and get involved. She made a personal decision to be baptized not long after attending, and has stayed consistently connected to the church ever since. She didn't just show up on Sundays, she came during the week as well, asked questions, served, invited others, including her boyfriend at the time, and clearly found a place where she felt at home. Throughout the past year, and even through the challenges of this year, she has continued to attend services regularly. She and her family often travel over an hour just to be with us. I've spoken and prayed with Sarah Grace many times throughout this season. Her commitment to staying grounded in her faith and connected to a healthy community has remained steady. She's even called from jail multiple times so I could pray with her. Her father has also become an active part of the church. He was baptized recently, and he still comes to services faithfully. If it's possible, and the court sees fit to grant Sarah Grace bond, we would gladly continue to walk alongside her as a church. We believe having her with her family and church community is an important part of her support system. We're committed to loving her well, encouraging her, and helping her continue on a positive path.
On the other side of that room, the Brock family, shattered, furious, and carrying the weight of 2 funerals in their hearts. James Brock's sister, Kim Bowling, stepped up to the microphone. Her voice did not break. It was steady, and it was cold, and it was exactly the kind of statement a courtroom remembers. "If the defendant can kill her own parents in such a violent manner," she said, "I fear for my own safety and the safety of my family and friends."
My name is Kim Bowling, and I'm Jamie's sister. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Since this tragic day, my brother Jamie and his wife Kristin were taken from us, I have become their voice as they no longer have one. If the defendant can kill her own parents in such a violent manner, I fear for my own safety and the safety of my family and friends.
And then came the moment that made the entire room go still. Jaden Brock, 12 years old, James Brock's youngest son, he walked to the front of that courtroom and he spoke directly to the judge. "I miss my dad every day. He was my hero. It is hard to sleep. It is hard to focus. It is even hard to smile sometimes. I still wait to hear his voice or see him walk through the door, but I know that will never happen again. Something that hurts even more is that I trusted Sarah and I loved her like a sister. Bond was denied and then denied again. Judge Dustin Hightower ruled on 2 grounds: significant flight risk and risk of witness intimidation. That second one carries particular weight because the key witness in this case is believed to be the little girl who first discovered those bodies, Sarah's own 5-year-old half-sister. Prosecutors believe that child may be required to take the stand and testify against her own sibling. Before the courtroom cleared, Judge Hightower looked out over the gallery, the supporters, the cameras, the t-shirts, and said something worth remembering. "This is not daytime court TV. This is not for entertainment. We are here to simply apply the law." Sarah Grace Patrick was returned to custody, where she has remained ever since, held in solitary confinement because of her age. As of today, Sarah Grace Patrick's trial is scheduled for August 3rd, 2026. It was originally set for January 2026. It was delayed after the defense commissioned a forensic neuropsychology report, a psychological deep dive that may form the backbone of their strategy at trial. The prosecution requested time to review it and build a rebuttal. The judge granted the continuance, but drew a firm line. Slim to none, he said, was the chance of any further delay past August. The murder weapon has never been found. No official motive has ever been publicly disclosed. And Sarah Grace Patrick, now 18 years old, sits in a cell in Carroll County, Georgia, waiting for a trial that will either free her or bury her beneath the weight of what happened on that February morning. 2 people are dead. A 5-year-old girl wandered into a bedroom and found them. A 12-year-old boy lost his father and the sister he thought he knew on the very same day. In a community that once wore "I Stand With Sarah" shirts now watches the clock count down toward August, wondering what the evidence will finally show. The only thing that seems certain? When that trial begins, when the doors of that courtroom open and the evidence is finally laid bare, no TikTok video, no tearful caption, no message to a true crime creator calling a double murder a really big hit will be enough to hold the truth back any longer. Justice moves slowly, but it moves. This case is not over. The trial of Sarah Grace Patrick opens in August 2026, and Courtroom Justice Files will be here for every single development. The evidence, the testimony, the verdict. If this story gripped you, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Every case we cover is chosen because it matters, because the truth matters, because the people who lost their lives in that bedroom deserve more than a TikTok post and a gun emoji. Rest in peace, Kristin Brock. Rest in peace, James Brock. And to every child left inside that house, may you find your way to peace.